We'll now reconvene our 5th Equity Advisory Roundtable meeting. We'll be finishing up with item 6, a presentation and discussion on our Equity Advisory Committee or committee's structure. So for item 6, I'm joined by my colleagues Avital Barnea, Deputy Secretary for Transportation Planning at the California State Transportation Agency, or CalSTA, and Amar Sid, Race and Equity Program Manager at the Caltrans Office of Race and Equity. In the presentation, I will provide an overview to roundtable members on insights that we have learned from presentations by folks who are convening equity advisory bodies at local and state level agencies in California. These models are being considered by staff in the development of a structural and procedural proposal for the Equity Advisory Committee or committees. And we really hope to end this presentation with a discussion with you, the Equity Advisory Roundtable, to focus in on your insights into the most important elements for us to incorporate into our proposal development. So thanks Amar and Avital for joining me here and in our partnership opportunities. Okay, next slide, please. So as some background, in June 2020, the Transportation Commission outlined its intention to form an equity advisory roundtable, which is this, to help inform the consideration of a standing equity advisory committee or committees. In January 2021, the Commission adopted its equity statement, highlighting the Commission's goal to, quote, empower the Commission's Equity Advisory Roundtable and future related efforts to help inform transportation decision-making. And as interagency coordination efforts increase between Caltrans and CalSTA and the Commission to implement this goal, each of our agencies seeks to gain insight on the development of equity advisory committees from other government agencies. Next slide, please. So in our own right, we've been engaged in kind of a listening tour with folks who are active in this work. Several state agencies and regional transportation agencies have updated their policies and processes to center equity as well. And for many of these, it includes establishing internal and external advisory committees, as well as developing equity platforms that make it easier to operationalize equity initiatives. Excuse me. So some of the agencies that we've either spoken to, heard from at the Commission, or researched through their websites and meeting agendas and documents include the following list: the California Energy Commission Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District Community Health Protection Program, the Oregon Department of Transportation Equity and their Transportation Equity and Mobility Advisory Committee, the Sacramento Area Council of Governments Race, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group, the San Diego Association of Governments, who hosts the Regional Plan Social Equity Working Group, the South Coast Air Quality Management District's Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity Advisory Panel, and the California Air Resources Board Environmental Justice Advisory Committee. So that's just a very small sample of the numerous equity advisory committees that are active throughout California and beyond. Next slide, please. So in December 2021, Noemi Gallardo, the public advisor for the California Energy Commission, joined us at our CCC Commission meeting and offered background and history and information into how the Energy Commission runs the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Committee. So as a little bit of background, their committee is required by Senate Bill 350, which is the Clean Energy and Pollution Reduction Act of 2015. It is an 11-member group that meets monthly and in public meetings subject to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, such as this roundtable. The group, the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Committee, reviews California Energy Commission and California Public Utility Commission clean energy programs and policies to ensure that disadvantaged communities, which include tribal and rural communities, benefit from proposed clean energy and pollution reduction programs. And advisory group members are either from or represent disadvantaged communities. Next slide, please. Some of the guiding principles of the California Energy Commission Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Committee include a commitment to increasing access to clean energy technologies for disadvantaged communities, maintain or enhance affordability of energy service in disadvantaged communities by considering potential utility rate impacts of any proposed program, and increase the benefits of clean energy programs in disadvantaged communities by supporting growth in local employment and small business development, as well as other non-energy benefits that include reducing pollutants and health risks. Next slide, please. The advisory group members and agency staff have continued to amend the charter in order to improve the functionality and administrative efficiency of the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group. This includes staggering the terms of members to maintain continuity of the group, clarifications to the appointment process, qualifications of members, resignation and removal processes, and the duties and responsibilities of the members. And notably, a per diem was added for any publicly noticed advisory group meeting. So that's compensation. Next slide, please. Another regional advisory group that we heard from was the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, which is led by Veronica Eady, the Senior Deputy Executive Officer of Policy and Equity. And their advisory group provides leadership on the district's community engagement, diversity, and equity and inclusion program and policy development. Next slide, please. So Ms. Eady gave us some really useful tips on what to think about and processes and policies that they integrated while creating kind of their selection process and seating of their formal committees. So the process that they use is going through public solicitation, utilizing ongoing advice from their board throughout the process, engaging in a screening process that includes community members and sister agency staff, conducting interviews with applicants, which are conducted by the board and either at the board meetings themselves or privately. The board committee for the Equity Advisory Group develops a slate of candidates, and it's brought to the board for board approval. Next slide, please. Some other considerations that Ms. E brought to our presentation is that a stipend policy was really important, and that a kind of a workaround for some difficulties that might be part of stipends could be by offering gift cards. Another consideration that was focused on includes setting appropriate expectations, having clear partnership agreements, so with the agencies working together, and really being clear about roles and responsibilities in the charters. And finally, the importance of partnership and power sharing, so how they implement joint meetings with their board, having a liaison to the board, and offering regular reports to share out what is happening at the meetings. Next slide, please. And so the Bay Area Air Quality Management has several informal and ad hoc groups, and some of the models that they operate under are focus groups, so similar to our SB1 guidelines focus group, design teams, working groups, and resource teams are some of the ways that they are utilizing community expertise and integrating equity into their policies and programs. And next slide, please. So with some more information kind of from this presentation, we'd really like to hold a discussion with Roundtable members since we are kind of rounding off our Roundtable journey and transitioning towards building out this Equity Advisory Committee or committees that will serve our interagency work. We're first of all very curious to hear from our Roundtable members just generally what your capacity is for supporting this committee or committees. We understand that as equity becomes more integrated into a lot of spaces, we know that the time commitments being asked, especially from our equity partners, is increasing. And so we definitely want to honor that and just try to kind of gauge your capacity. And then also kind of from the presentation slides that were just brought forward, and also from your own experiences as advisory committee members in your own communities, are there any other structural or procedural elements from these presentations that we should propose for the EAC that you think are really important? And Rio in the chat just noted that stipends is already included. So things like that that you think are very, very important for us to integrate into our proposal. And with that, I'll open it up to comments, questions from our Roundtable members and commissioners after Roundtable members.
Hello.
Thank you. And feel free to just chime in. Yeah.
Okay. This is good to see the development of where the Roundtable is heading to. So great. Thank you so much for all your work. And it's cool to hear that it's going to be interagency. I mean, we've already been doing it that way, but that it's being named explicitly. The only thing that I'm still having like hesitations about, and I had flagged this earlier, is the advisory label. I mean, one, because calling it an advisory means that it doesn't really have any power, but two, even if you weren't to call it an advisory, right, like you called it an interagency equity leadership committee, it would only be authentic if this committee actually has a decision-making power or a vote in how things are being rolled out. So I don't know if that's being addressed yet, but I think that would be a precursor for me understanding my capacity is just, what's the viability of our voice as a committee member, as committee members, as a committee to actually have an impact that's beyond advice. I have been part of advisory committees before for the neighborhood councils here in Echo Park. And we could have 100% agreement amongst the committee and we would bring it back to the council member. The council member just didn't care. You know, we were supposed to advise the council member, right? And so given that I've had that experience, I'm imagining others on the line have also had that experience. Just how would we address that, right? And of course, if it's authentically being addressed, then, you know, changing the name so it's not advisory would be really cool. And yeah, I guess knowing a little bit more of that. And then the second question is just for our understanding capacity, and I might have missed this, but what is the actual requirement are we seeing? Is it like every quarterly? Is it as frequent as the roundtables? Is it more frequent? Yeah, just kind of what's the level of request? And that's all.
Yeah, I don't know if my colleagues want to address any of the questions from Rio, especially around timelines and things like that.
Well, I'll just jump in.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll just jump in and talk about decision making. So the commission legally cannot delegate decision making unless there's a specific statute that allows them to do that. So you know, we make lots of, let's say, project allocations or something, or we comment on environmental documents. They can't delegate that to staff. There has to be the commission voting on that stuff. So I think our ability to create a decision-making body separate from the commission is very limited.
I can just add on that real quick. I'll just mention too that this is very new for us, and we're excited about the Equity Advisory Committee, or whatever we end up calling it. Appreciate your thought and comment on that, Rio. And we've been trying to work with our colleagues to get them comfortable with this idea that we are going to be taking very seriously the feedback and opinions and experience of people who don't work for the state, you know, people who experience our transportation system as community members and leaders in their community. And so just trying to socialize that idea is also a little bit of an uphill climb, but, you know, we really appreciate hearing your feedback. We do, you know, want to take into very serious consideration what our decisions and policies, what impacts they make on the people that are experiencing the transportation system. And that's why we want to start out with this group. And I think it'll be a learning opportunity as we get through it. And so thank you for sharing your thoughts on that.
Hi, Sequoia. Oh, all right. Sequoia, can you hear me?
That I think for this group, we can really try to make sure that any of the recommendations that the EAC or whatever we land up on the name will have full transparency in all of our agencies, so that those recommendations or, you know, requests for decisions kind of go up and we can have full discussion between all our exec management who, you know, are going to be giving that decision-making power to whatever the project is, and whatever happens, that there's that transparency and we can maybe develop a different process as we move through this. And I think for the structure, we're looking at anywhere from 2 to 4 meetings a year as a large group between all 3 agencies, and then having working groups in between those. So kind of having a staff level working group, but with the members, and then kind of moving that forward to our exec management and commission meetings so that we can have a discussion there. So we're still working on what that looks like, what the capacity for all 3 of our agencies and the community groups or members on the group would have, and then also looking at our schedule, where that fits in between commission meetings or any type of joint agency board meetings that we were working through.
Hey, Sequoia, this is Laura. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. If it's okay, I just wanted to chime in with one additional comment from commission staff's perspective. So I just want to underscore what the experience that Rio shared. as one that we, as staff of our 3 agencies working on this, want to make sure that our advisory committee is not that. When I worked in local government, I staffed advisory committees and I saw things like that happen. And I think we can all acknowledge that that is not what we want this experience to be. And we take that feedback really seriously. I think from staff's perspective, our goal, our commitment in this is to make sure that this committee is able to effectuate change. And so we really look forward to having a serious conversation about the type of structure and process and having transparency and all the things that are needed to make it effective. So I just wanted to just highlight that and let everyone know that our commitment is serious in this regard. So thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, you bet.
No, definitely echoing what Rio was saying, that hearing from you all that you're really trying to be transparent with that and knowing when our advice is not taking right or what that means to be in an advisory committee. And I think along with that too is structuring that committee in a way where the meetings aren't just like folks like talking at folks, right? It's like different levels of participation or leadership development, right? It's like we want you all to look at these at this plan or papers and give feedback on that, but folks may not have experience with that, right? And so it's like, how do we help those papers become more understandable, or infrastructure plans, or so maybe offering even that. I know everyone's at capacity, so those that can take it or can't, those like capacity developments, I think would be really essential, that I've seen too from like advisory or equity advisory committees. Like that's where the equity starts, right? Bringing those resources to the folks so they know how to give that advice.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. I think that there are so many good models of training programs for folks that want to participate, especially community folks. One being the Boards and Commissions Leadership Institute, and groups like that who can offer support for folks to be able to participate at the full extent. So I think that's great ideas. And also I want to add that agenda sharing is agenda setting, and sharing that responsibility is one way that I really see as a way to ensure that it's not just like us planning what the meeting is going to be, but the advisory committee members really deciding what they all want to be talking about. I don't know if my colleagues want to add to that.
I think that's a good point on the capacity building and kind of support for any of the committee members that are coming online, and maybe once we start identifying or we have a nomination process or whatever that looks like to secure membership, we can also kind of survey our membership on what capacity needs there are, what kind of training models that our agencies can support, even having maybe some smaller workshops between the 3 agencies and the committee to get them apprised on where we're at. And I think the agenda sharing is, scoping out what the structure would be for our kind of impetus of the committee. Like, what are the key areas of effort? Maybe what are some of the programs that we all want to focus on or learn more about, so that we can have that targeted discussion and see where the committee is going to make the suggestions or recommendations for improvement. One thing that Caltrans did in the past, and I believe CTC did this as well, is kind of put together like a book of what Caltrans does, what are our programs, what are our funding structures, kind of like this large playbook, if you will, that could be updated and developed and sent back out to the committee members, so that we at least have a starting point, and then we can start flagging some of the areas of like a sphere of control between all 3 agencies, and see what we can kind of agendize around or what we can workshop around.
Yeah, thank you. We had one more comment from Laura that she wanted to mention, Laura Pennybaker also wanted to mention that accountability is a really top priority for the development of this committee or these committees. Just adding that in.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in and lift up what's been shared earlier as well. The way I, go about deciding how to serve on some of these committees, and some of my staff and partners do is, to me, it really comes down to like resources and power. What kind of resources do participants have? Compensate our time to support the time and energy that it takes to, analyze and educate ourselves on some of these issues and weigh in on them. And also, like Rio mentioned, what power and level of influence do we have over outcomes across the state? So those are essential. I just wanted to register my support for using like our best efforts to ensure that the committee and has influence and real power to influence what our transportation system looks like in the state and how decisions are made, and that there's also the resources to support our time and energy.
Great, thank you. Just acknowledging that the questions of the power of this committee and compensation have been raised a couple of times now. So thank you for mentioning that, Randy. We'd love to hear from other advisory roundtable members on your thoughts around these questions or any other questions or concerns that you have with moving forward with this. Yeah,
I'll just do one more comment. So again, thank you all for all the work you've done. And I really enjoyed hearing both the issue of the transparency and the accountability being addressed right out the gate, which is so refreshing. And I'm guessing that will be part of, I'm guessing, the committee's role too, to also figure out what that would look like, what it actually means to be accountable, what it means to be transparent. And I think it's really great that you all are already putting it out there out the gate, so it's not like we get to the committee and we have to, bring up all these things up, up again. So thank you so much for the work. It's definitely very evident. There's, as of now, I'm not finding too many gaps.
Thanks, Rio. Appreciate that. I also want to invite our commissioners who are on the line, if you'd like to participate in the conversation. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to add. Okay. Yeah, well, before we wrap this up, I want to, are there any more comments or items from my colleagues, Amar Abishal, that you'd like to mention before we close out this item?
Nothing else from me. Thank you to the roundtable for all of your thoughts and comments and feedback.
Oh, great. Okay, so we have two folks. I see Stephanie Ramirez and Commissioner Davis. Go ahead, Stephanie. Oh, you're on mute.
Claire, I don't think we can hear you.
So we'll move to Commissioner Davis and then back to Stephanie.
I just wanted to say I like Amar's playbook idea. I mean, I think if you could explain the process, the procedure, the rules that can be changed, the way some of the other funding mechanisms are constructed based on what was passed with SB1. We don't move in a direction with false expectations and then disappoint people, and as they're working so hard to put together programs that will make a difference. And so I like that idea. I think it makes a lot of sense, and that way everybody sort of can get on the same songbook, so to speak, with how we can effectuate these changes. And so I just wanted to just echo my support for that concept.
Thanks, Commissioner Davis. And while we wait for Stephanie's question to come in,
Sequoia, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think it's just a camera issue.
Okay.
Yeah, no, ditto to every comment that has been made in terms of, I think, just the commitment to ensure that, as Rio mentioned, I think with equity work, I think that we've been able to really be honest about the challenges, right, in doing this work. And so being able not just to create the space, but also design something where, as an advisory, again, I think we've gotten sort of the framework or the legal framework in which we can operate, that there isn't this like constant frustration. And so being able to value our input, but also be clear about how our knowledge and experience as community members and the different hats that we wear are also valued within your process. And I think being transparent about that. So it seems like there's a commitment that's great, and constantly being able to check in whether that said commitment is playing out in your processes, I think is important, right? So it's not just like, hey, we're committed. But it's like a constant, check-in of like, is what we're saying, is our words and action, in step as we're going through this work and this process. So having said that, I do, highly encourage the idea of the staggering of terms. I know that for me, that's something that in other working groups and advisory, bodies that I participate, it's a constant challenge, because I think there's this just level of a low level of participation, but also, there's a fear that if, let's say, you're not, a particular person's not involved, and they've been a staunch advocate within their respective communities, and no one else is stepping in, that then that community sort of loses a voice in our committees, because there isn't like a replacement already have been identified. So I know that sometimes alternates are helpful in that regard, and I know it could be frustrating when the role of the role of an alternate, or the expectations of what your role should be, are also not discussed. But I think having that is really important, and being able, I think, to have people in the pipeline and create leadership, but also sort of having a time where clear, I don't know if it's like even term limits, but having a clear sense of giving people a set of time, so then it's not like a stagnant energy within advisory groups, because sometimes people tend to stay too long, and I know that I myself am saying from personal experience, and so yeah, to give an opportunity to have other folks come into the fold and provide their knowledge and input and experience. And so, yeah, I think, again, there's great thinking on how to shape this, and it seems, at least to me, again, I've been involved in a lot of these advisory groups, that you seem to be headed in a great direction, just already thinking about these questions and experiences to be able to inform and shape a great way for folks to really come in and feel like they're valued. That's it for me.
Thanks for that, Stephanie. A lot to think about there. I'll just say that what I heard from you is kind of the echoing the need to stagger terms, have clear time commitments for folks, so that responsibility doesn't just kind of fall on one person, having alternates, creating leadership pipelines, and yeah, that was what I got.
And the roles and responsibilities defined.
Okay. Oh, defined. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, this is super helpful. Are there any other comments, ideas, expertise from our group commissioners and roundtable members and colleagues? Great, thank you. So one thing that I did want to kind of throw out as an idea is the possibility of creating a smaller focus group, similar to the SB1 focus group that we just heard from, where a smaller group of roundtable members who are interested and available join us in having a deeper conversation to think through the proposal and the process, so that when we come back for the next roundtable meeting, we'll have been able to have a little bit of a deeper dive with you all in that space. So I would like to reach out to you to get some of your input in that, if you're interested in joining. Thanks, Randy. So stay tuned for that. So one last call for comments, questions, concerns from our panelists, our roundtable members, commissioners, colleagues. Great, thank you.
Yeah. I'd like to invite, thanks, sorry about that. I'd like to invite all my fellow roundtable members and all the staff here to an event we're organizing in San Diego on Saturday, February 12th. It's called Creek to Bay Community Bike Ride, and we're going to be riding from City Heights, which is the community I work in, New Roots Garden, on 54th Street. We're going to be riding from there all the way to the bay, just like the mural says at Chicano Park. We're going to be riding through Southeast San Diego. We're going to be riding eventually to Chicano Park and the Bayfront. It's going to be a really fun community bike ride that we're doing in partnership with a bunch of other CBOs and leaders, like Victor Ochoa, a muralist at Chicano Park, is going to be painting a mural on that day, and he's going to be speaking with our group. We've also been in touch with Dr. Stan Rodriguez from Comiac Community College, who will be speaking in Collaborative Project. It does great work in Southeast San Diego. We're all community workers are in Barrio Logan, Sandy Naranjo, Port Commissioner at the Bay, the Port of San Diego, and the ride is really to celebrate our communities south of the 8 freeway, and also to raise profile on different campaigns for environmental, social, transportation justice, and also to talk about equitable access to the coast, which sadly San Diego, many of our communities don't have a way to safely get to the bayfront because of environmentally racist zoning and other issues. So the event is funded by the California Coastal Conservancy in partnership with Outdoor Outreach, and we'd love to have you join. Saturday, February 12th, meeting up at 11 a.m. and riding at 11:30, and come out if you can. San Diego, thanks.
Thanks, Randy.
So quick, can I add one more thing back onto some of the roles and responsibilities, or some of the thoughts for EAC? So I just wanted to provide a reminder for the folks here, and we'll send out some more notices in the coming weeks. But one thing that the team has envisioned for EAC is to kind of support the development of the equity index that Caltrans is working on. So that's something that we hope to have a first iteration by the fall of this year, and then kind of developing like ongoing iterations for like a 2.0 model. We have an informational session that should kick off at the end of this month with public workshops starting in phases with March, and then focus groups possibly in April and May. So that's just a kind of a reminder. I know we mentioned the equity index a few roundtables ago. So hopefully we'll be sending out that information over the next like 2 weeks or so. And this group here will be on that list of getting information from my team.
Awesome. Yes, so as we can see, there's so much to participate in and so much good work being done out there. And thanks everyone for all your commitment in all your different ways. Room for everyone. So to close out this item, one more, are there any questions, comments from roundtable members or commissioners or my colleagues? All right, I want to check the public comment line. Are there any comments on the Spanish line related to this item?
No comments at this time in the Spanish line.
Thank you. And are there any public comments on your line, Justin?
No public comment at this time. Go ahead. Thank you. Great.
Well, thanks everyone for being here for this this conversation and this meeting. And I think this has been really useful. And thanks to Amar and Avital for being on this journey together. Really appreciate and love working with both of you. So with that, we'll move on to tab 7, which is the public comment item. Are there any general comments on either the Spanish or Justin's line, public comment line?
No comments at this time. Thank you in the Spanish.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Not seeing any public comment at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can move to our next item, meeting recap and next steps. So as we approach our final agenda item for the day, I definitely want to extend my appreciation and my colleagues' appreciation for the honest discussion and feedback that we've heard today. Thanks everyone for joining us for this early meeting. We really are glad you could make it. So in terms of major takeaways and action items, we've noted the following, and I appreciate my team for sending me notes on this during the meeting. So major takeaways and action items that we've noted include that there was interest from roundtable members in the Reconnecting Communities and Highways to Boulevards funding opportunities that are coming forward. If roundtable members or members of the public have thoughts about potential projects, we highly encourage you to connect with staff at our Caltrans districts. And if you're not sure who to talk to, any one of us that were on this call today would be more than happy to help facilitate those connections. And we really look forward to continuing to build relationships with community-based organizations across the state to ensure that community-centered approaches are made when developing and implementing projects. We also heard updates today on the community listening sessions, the Senate Bill 1 program guidelines, and the Equity Advisory Committee formation. We appreciate the Roundtable member feedback that thus far has informed the development of these efforts. And we especially appreciate Connie and Gerard for working with us to help us better consider equity in SB1 program guidelines, and want to extend the invitation to anyone else who wants to participate in future workshops or focus groups related to SB1 or our advisory committee proposal. Please join us. We'd love to talk with you more. We are super thankful to Roundtable members for sharing experiences participating in advisory bodies, and for really encouraging us to be thoughtful about how we as agency partners foster transparency and accountability in our efforts to advance equity. So again, Roundtable members, please keep an eye out for future updates on these efforts. And if you'd like to be more involved outside of these public meetings, please let us know. Do any Roundtable members have any questions or additions to these takeaway and action items? Great, thanks. Hearing none at this time, in terms of...
I think that Carolyn or you or somebody promised to send around the list of CBOs for the outreach efforts for the listening sessions. And I've created a kind of a laundry list of potential equity indicators and metrics that I will share and ask that you share with everyone.
Thanks, Commissioner Liu. Added to our takeaways, our action items, excuse me. Any others from Roundtable members or commissioners? Okay, so in terms of next steps, CTC staff will prepare summary notes from today's meetings, and all materials and the recording of this webinar will be posted on the Commission's website. The next Roundtable meeting is proposed to be held March 29th, 2022 from 9 a.m. to noon. Stay tuned on that date. We will reach out to you in the next couple weeks to follow up about staying involved in the various initiatives discussed today. And one last opportunity, any final questions or comments from Roundtable members, commissioners, or the public before we wrap for the day? All right, are there any final comments from the Spanish line?
No comments from the Spanish line, thank you.
Thank you. And any public comments on Justin's line?
No public comment at this time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, again, deep appreciation for all of you who are able to make it, for our colleagues who participated in setting up this meeting and making sure that we could do this in this way. Thanks for your dedication and commitment. I hope that you are all able to stay healthy and safe, and we'll be reaching out to you soon to coordinate the next Roundtable meeting for spring 2022. Thank you, everyone, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.